Good morning, students. We go back to the second part of the lecture, and here is one of the questions that ChatGPT is recommending. That it says when you retire, we briefly talked about it, but I want to expand on it. You are planning to retire, and think about that your salary is $100,000 a year. If you are retiring, how much do you expect, do you want to have to in your retirement to keep the same level of lifestyle? They recommend that your retirement salary should be between 70% or 80% of your income before you retire. If you are making 100,000 and next month you are going to retire, last year, for example, you made 100,000, now it's January, you are retiring. This coming year, you have to have between 70 to 80% of $100,000 of income to make sure that your lifestyle doesn't change and you don't need to move to a less expensive apartment. 70 to 80% of 100,000 is around 70,000 to 80,000. And if that is less than that, then you won't be able to keep the same lifestyle that you have, to drive the same type of car, to eat the same way that you eat. Therefore, why it is this much less? Because when you get paid, you get money, you do not invest. Your salary does not go for social security anymore. Therefore, you have a discount from them. And usually you don't contribute. It doesn't go for your Medicare because, it comes out of your paycheck. Therefore, you don't have these, deductions that you usually have. Maybe you are not buying as many clothes that you have to go to work, or maybe you don't have as much gas expense. Therefore, your expenses would be between 70 to 80%. If you are not making, when you retire, between 70 to 80%, therefore you have to cut back on many things. Now, if you ask me how much can you get from your social security checks, let's not forget those social security checks are not going to give you 70 or $80,000 a year. Why they are not? Because there is a limit to it. You will get something between 1,000 a month to maybe 3,000, 4,000 if you were a high income person in your life, or you made a lot of money, you gave a lot of money to social security office, then you might get every month $4,000. There is a limit. You can check it to check with ChatGPT, or maybe I do that to show you that how much is the maximum social security one person gets. Therefore, that if you get, let's say, $2,000 a month in social security, that would translate to only $24,000, $25,000 a year. There is a difference between $25,000, $24,000 to $70,000 or $80,000, which means you are short by almost, let's say, $60,000, $50,000. Where do you want to get that money? How do you want to compensate? You have to have other income. And those other income, you get it from your investments. You already did some calculations. You get from CDs. And that is not a little bit of money. Getting $50,000 from other sources when you are retiring, that's a huge amount. $50,000, if you have $1 million in the bank, and you get 5% interest, that is $50,000, which means that if you retired, and you get, $25,000 a year from Social Security, you better have $1 million in your saving. That way you get 5%. If you have less, let's say you have $500,000. What should I do? I would come to me and say, put that, in buying indexes like a S&P 500 index. S&P 500 gives you 10%, on average, but that is a little risky because it goes up and down. Therefore, one year you might get 10%, you might get 5%, one year you might get 15%. Therefore, then if you say you don't want to take, but your salary to fluctuate, your, income, therefore, maybe I tell you to have less fluctuations, combine it with some, stocks and some bonds. Bonds fluctuate less, but then you end up not getting $50,000. Maybe on average you get 30,000. You put 30,000 with 25,000, that will be, 55,000. But it is less than 70,000 to 80,000. Therefore, you will have a tough retirement based on salary of 100,000. Of course, many of us that we retire, our salary is not 100,000. Our salary is, for example, 40,000. Still, there is, you can easily calculate 70% of 40,000 is $28,000, and 80% of it is $32,000. Do you have that income when you retire? As I said, if your paycheck is, $24,000 a year, the difference between 24,000, for example, to 30,000 that you need, you are $6,000 short. Where do you want to get that? That should come from investments such as the money that you have in 403, or example, you have to, other resources. And some students are asking about, different annuities. And what are these annuities? We will talk about it in more details. There is something called tax deferred growth. If you think about it, is that the meaning of it is that you contribute money to the annuity. The meaning of annuity is that I am going to imagine that I am the person, I am the bank. You come and tell me, Sayed, I am going to give you, for example, $100,000, and I am, suppose, 60 years old, and I retire in 5 years. Take my money, and you are a rich person, for example, of course, you tell it to the bank or an insurance company. Usually there are a major insurance company that sell annuity. And say, when I retire at age of 65, I want you to take this $100,000 now that I am 60, and then pay me in installments as long as I live. I say, okay, I get your 100,000, and then what I am going to do, I am going to give you, for example, every year as much as $4,000. Now, how do I know how much I should give you? And then what happens, what I calculate is that I would come and say, okay, this person gave me 100,000. She or he is going to live after 65. Most likely, he or she will live until 85. That is 20 years. Therefore, if I get his or her $100,000 and I pay it back to her for 20 years, the meaning of it is that I have to pay $4,000 every year to this person until this 100,000 is used up, because 4,000 times, let's say 4,000 times 25 years, as you will live after 65, let's say you live up to 90 is 25. If you multiply, it becomes 100,000. But I have to pay you interest as well. Therefore, because you are not going to give your money to me $100,000 without me giving interest to you. Therefore, I come with a contract with you, and I say that, okay, as long as you are living, I am going to give you, for example, $4,600. That means $400,000 is the, amount that you gave me, and I am returning it back to you. The $6,000 is additional interest that I am giving to you. Now, your hope is to live 110 years old. That way I keep giving you money, because if you live long, I keep end up losing money, because if you live up to the age of 90, I break even. If you live up to more than 90, I end up losing because I already have paid your $100,000 and I paid you $600 interest every year. However, if you live less than 90 years, I end up making money. Therefore, that's some type of, you see, that it's a kind of insurance for you, that you know that, by giving me $100,000, I have guaranteed that you are going to get money from me, as long as you are living. Some people, and this is a tax deferred. The meaning of tax deferred is that when you contribute to your annuity with a salary of $1,000 every month, suppose you gave me 90,000 and you expect to pay me, let's say, $2,000 a year until you become 65. Therefore, those $2,000 that come to me in certain areas is tax deferred. That means you won't be paying taxes on it. And therefore, when it comes and also your money grows, maybe you can tell me that rather than giving me, for example, 100,000, you are going to give me, suppose 85,000. Your hope is that you are in the next 5 years, you pay $2,000 a year, that makes it 95, and you are hoping that in these 5 years, the interest accumulates and brings it to 100,000. That is where our contract agrees, and I have to pay it back. Therefore, fixed annuities, this is a very important annuities, it is a guaranteed. Didn't I tell you that I guarantee that I give you $4,000 a year plus $600, interest on the 40,000, 4,000 a year. And when I say that, then it is a fixed amount. That means no matter what happens to market, goes up and down, I am obligated every year to give you 4,600. It is some type of relief for you, that you are guaranteed, you are sure that this is the money that comes to you. It is not in the form of the CDs that you get some interest, but after 6 months when the interest rates go up, you want to buy another CD, then the CD drops. Then in that case you will lose money. Therefore, some annuities have some additional, benefits. There might be some provisions that, you might say, okay, I am, for example, 65. If I live only for 10 years, what happened to the rest of the annuity that I gave you? Maybe there are some provisions that I might enter into a contract and say, I will return the rest of them in this format to your beneficiaries. Do you see that? There are some contracts, in annuities. There are complex, some annuities are complex, and they are not recommended as much for the younger people, the people who are getting closer to the retirement. Show more interest in annuity. Let's say if you have $50,000, $100,000 in your 403 account, you can talk to professionals to see what kind of advice they give you if you want to have annuity. And one of the things you have to know about annuities is the issue of inflation, because when you are getting $4,000 from me for the next 20 years or 30 years, the $4,000 of today is different than the $4,000 of 20 years from now. Which means when you get to the age of 80, 85, that 4,000 won't have as much buying power. Therefore it loses its value, and therefore there are some types of annuities are called, this is called fixed annuity, but not all annuities are fixed. And then we will talk about that as well. And one student is saying that she or he wants to delay her social or his social security checks up to age of 70. That's a very smart thing. you can get your Social Security at age 65, 62. When you get at this age 62, do you remember we gave an example of you might be getting $2,000 a year from $2,000 a month for your Social Security, and this $2,000 a month, if you are, let's say, assuming that you are 62. And if you are 60, let me use a better example because many of us are not high salary people. Imagine that you get $1,000 if you retire at 62. Then, if in that case, $1,000 might not be enough for you to live at, on a paycheck of $1,000 a month. Therefore, one thing you may do is that you might say that you would rather to wait until age 65, which means 5 more years. If you wait 5 more years, then you, instead of getting $1,000 a month, when you get to 65, for example, you end up getting $1,200. Therefore, maybe it is a good idea you don't retire at age 62, 3 years, you work 3 more years and you will get, well, for example, let me see, it goes by a 5% increase, therefore $1,300 think you get at 65 if you wait, for example. Now, the people who are smart, even they wait until the age of 67. And the reason to it is that from age of 62 to 67, every year, your Social Security on average increases by 5%, which is not a bad idea because the money you put in the bank might, give you 5% if but why not to put it in, but you have to have something to live on if you don't want to get your Social Security check. How can you live on, if you don't get, maybe you work a little bit longer, that's the purpose. Some people do even a smarter thing. What they do, they know where they get to the age of 67, their Social Security now, instead of going up at 5%, it goes up at 8% from 67 to 70 years. That means for a period of 7 years, 3 years, they get 8%, which means their salary of $1,300 at age 67 then goes up. And think about it, it goes up at possibly another $200 goes on it, and then they end up getting $1,500. Do you see the difference that if you retired at the age of 62, you were getting only 1,000 Social Security, but at the age of because you delayed your Social Security, now you are getting $1,500 or $1,600. That means you get 50% more. Therefore, many people prefer, if they can, to wait until age 60. But it's some people, maybe around 15-20% of the people can afford. Why the people can afford to work? Let's say some people like to retire at age 62. It is because of the health issues. Some get tired, some lose their jobs, for different reasons. But the more you delay it, the better it is. And therefore, these are some issues that you want. Again, that's 70%, 80%. Therefore, we came here. I highly, highly recommend you all go and do your research about 401k, IRA. You know how to ask questions. Go to ChatGPT. If you are young, very important to get particularly this IRA invested, and some major mistakes that the people make and the students make. They put their money in IRA. They put it in something that earns little interest, 2%, 3%. That is not a smart way. You have to put it in some, stocks, bonds, something that is not risky, but it can grow maybe 10%, 15%. If you are young and your portfolio goes, if you are 20 years old, your portfolio goes, at 15%, and you manage to put $2,000-$3,000 a month, a year, or or 5,000 a year, let me assure you, you can end up a millionaire. You can have a very good, retirement, Therefore, this is something you definitely want to know. And for 401k, as I said, your employee match. But if you put more than what employer match, that's even smarter, because this is called tax deferred account. Imagine that your employer every year puts $400 for you. You put 400 from your salary. That is 800. Your question is, why should you put additional 1,000 to your 401k? The reason to it is that when you put 1,000 additional dollar in your 401k, what happens is that you don't pay taxes. If it is a regular 401k, if you don't pay taxes, which means you are holding the money of the IRS, which you had, it is about out of 1,000, maybe $250 of it had to go for state and federal. By putting additional in your 401k, you are not giving that $250 to the IRS. Imagine you are 20 years old. What's wrong about it? That $250,000, you put it in whatever investment in your 401k, and you get a lot of interest on it for 40 years. That's the money of the IRS you didn't give. Of course, when you retire, you have to pay taxes on whatever. However, if you put those extra money in stocks and they go 10% up, why not? Every year you put 1,000 extra. Oh boy, you will have significant amount of growth. And some people you make sure if you want to have mix of stocks and bond to make sure you are covered for the inflation. And one of the smart things you have to do is, first of all, make sure you have high interest. You don't have high interest debt. There is no reason for you to suddenly say you want to go and put for your money for 401k, extra money. Matching, definitely go for it. But extra money you have, make sure that what kills many students in terms of finances is these consumer loans and high interests for things that the student does not need. You go and buy furniture and you are paying interest on it. You go even buy cars. These are something that depreciates, car, furniture and those things. Credit cards, you want to make sure I am paying interest on my credit cards. You know how much? 4%. That is that is affordable for me. 4%. Some of you are paying 25%, and that 4%, I had a reason to pay that. Otherwise it is best not to pay anything and not to have any credit card debt, and therefore that is the best way. Delaying retirement, that's very smart. We already said sometimes you want to work for up to age 70, but as we said, the earliest you can retire, assuming you were born 1960 and after, and therefore I think all the students in this class are born 1960 and after, and therefore you will retire. Early retirement is 62, otherwise 61 could be the early retirement. Tax efficient accounts. Tax efficient accounts, the meaning of it is, a tax efficient Roth IRA. There is a difference between Roth IRA and traditional IRA. I'm going to send this video, and I will send you another one to make sure we have covered enough.